Hello everyone, Shane's Games here. So today I'm going to be doing a bit of a different video. I'm going to be reviewing one of Greg Doucette's videos actually. Well, because right now in the fitness sphere, right, there's a whole load of different information about diet. Everybody has their own different ideas of diet. It's mainly calories in, calories out versus a more like nuanced idea involving hormones and stuff like that. Like you'll see more of the keto group going in that, to an extent, like the vegans, the vegetarians, stuff like that. And then with the more calories in, calories out, that's just kind of general. There's not a particular group around that. Greg's definitely in that group, and a few other YouTubers. I can't remember the exact names of right now, but we're just going to be going over Greg. He goes over a video by somebody called Jason Fung, who speaks about calories in versus calories out, and Greg says he disagrees with him, but I feel as if the points he's making and the points which the doctor's making, Dr. Fung is making, are extremely similar. If not, they're just the same. But I guess I'll let you lot decide that.
Because you're all big fans of Jason Fung. Because he does fasting. This has nothing to do with fasting. This video is not about fasting. It's about calories in, calories out, losing weight. Coach Greg, and today I'm going to be reviewing a video done by NBC News. They had on Dr. Jason Fung, and the title of the video is, get this, counting calories is a ridiculous way to try and lose weight. So here's...
Alright, so first of all, I don't think that he believes that, Jason Fung. I don't think he believes that. I think it's just a catchy title to get people's attention, to be completely honest with you. I don't think it's anything more than that. I normally don't judge videos by their titles because they normally lie or clickbait to some extent just to get more views. I don't think that's a very good way of judging a video, but I don't think Greg does that anyway.
The problem. So much misinformation is on the internet that people don't know what to believe. Let me read this comment. Seriously, I don't know who to trust anymore.
Exactly. So many people on here. This is what I'm going to try and do from now on, because there's so much different information out there. The best tip, which I'd have to give to you now, is don't trust anybody, right? Just don't trust anyone, or trust everyone. Try everything that you can try and find out what works for you, right? Try it for like a week or a month, however long it may be, however much time you're willing to dedicate to it. If it works for you, continue doing that. If it doesn't, then switch it. It doesn't matter who it is. Greg's going to tell you to believe him. This Fung guy is going to tell you to... Jason Fung is going to tell you to believe him. Whoever else... Thomas DeLauer is going to tell you to believe him. Net's going to tell you to believe him. Everybody who you listen to is going to tell you to believe them, obviously, because they think, going beyond views and money or whatever it may be, just they think that they're right, probably. Why would they put out false information? Even if it would make them money, I think deep down it's probably just because they think they're right. I think that's the most logical answer here. So with them each defending their own stances and each having a fair amount of evidence to back it up, like who you gonna go with? I don't know. Just try out everybody's diet and see what works for you. That's what I'm gonna say about this.
Trust me, Coach Greg. I'm going to give you the straight up facts. Everybody's going to say something different. You don't know who to believe. You don't know who to trust. One person says one thing, another says the opposite. You don't know what to believe. Believe in me. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to make sense.
See, there you go. He just says to believe. I mean, literally everybody would say that. Whenever asked a question, whenever you ask a fitness YouTuber, oh, should I trust you when it comes to dietary advice? What they're going to say? No? Like, nobody's going to say no to that. Of course they're going to say yeah, because, as I said before, they think they're right, they want views, they want money, whatever it may be.
I'm asking is, are all calories equally fattening? And the answer is no.
Well, no, but that doesn't mean calories in, calories out don't work. Different foods have different thermic effects. If you eat one food, it doesn't mean it's going to be burnt off in the same exact manner. Some foods, like protein, it takes more calories and energy to digest than other foods like fat. So if you eat the same amount of calories from fat as protein, the person who eats protein is going to be able to lose more weight than the person who eats fat. That doesn't mean calories in, calories out don't work. It means that if you eat more protein, the calories out goes up.
I mean, that's true, yeah. So you can say, okay, so here's the thing, right? So you can say something, and then what you say can make complete sense. However, it can be interpreted two completely different ways by your audience. Let's say, whenever Greg says calories in versus calories out, people instinctively don't think that a change in your calories in can directly affect your calories out. People don't instinctively think that, I think, from his channel. I think what they're thinking is, okay, so if I decrease my calories in, And then how can I put this? If I decrease my calories in, and let's say I'm going to like full exertion, I simply won't have enough energy to exert the same energy because I have less calories, for example. Or if they simply wanted to lose weight, that they would think if they decrease calories they eat and increase the calories which they output, then they're probably going to lose weight. If they just do one of those, they're probably going to lose weight. They're probably not thinking that a simple change in the calories in, the type of calories in, but not changing the sheer quantity of calories which you're inputting, would change the calories you're outputting. I don't think most people think that. I think that's a more nuanced point.
You see the difference? If you eat a whole shitload of fat and you switch to eating a shitload of protein, you burn more calories digesting the protein. It takes more work and energy to turn protein that you eat into stored body fat. So that answers that part. That doesn't mean the laws of thermodynamics do not apply. Let's see the rest of the video.
Okay, again. So the whole idea of the law of thermodynamics does work in a vacuum. However, humans are not in a vacuum. I'm going to have to go into this in some detail here. There are so many different variables which play into the amount of calories which you burn. Most people don't even care about the calories which you burn. Most people are just interested in the amount of fat you store and the amount of fat you burn, right? If people are going through like gluconeogenesis and they're like losing muscle mass when they're cutting, let's say, right? Okay, so let's say this probably doesn't happen that much, but they're going to gluconeogenesis when they're cutting, breaking down their muscle instead of their fat. If that's happening, they're losing weight, sure, but I'm pretty sure that's not what they want, because they'll just be like an atrophied fat person, which I would assume is not what most people want. Most people aren't too concerned about weight. They're concerned about fat percentage, body fat percentage. And when it comes to that, then the issue becomes significantly more nuanced. Then we have to look into different hormones. We have to look into inflammation. We have to look into if you're on keto, you have to look into how your glucagon is being stored. You have to look into glycogen. You have to look into you have to look into all these. It becomes a much more complicated, nuanced issue. And that's how I feel about the whole calories in versus calories out. I feel it's too simplified for the average person. In theory, it's true, but in practice, it's false. It's one of those weird things, right? You could tell somebody something, and it could be completely true. But in order for what you tell somebody to have any meaning, they must interpret it in some way. And with this, for example, with like a claim telling somebody to do something, they must act out in some way. And if they interpret it wrong, but what you told them was technically right, then that thing in my eyes is incorrect, right? However, I think it's also important not to put the blame on factors which we can't control. It's almost a sleight of hand sort of things, where people exchange the macro effects for the micro effects. So let's say you have a really fat person and they blame it on a glandular problem or something like that. Sure, it may influence it, but that's not the be all and end all. Just because you have a glandular problem doesn't mean you can't lose weight. It means it's more difficult, sure, but the more you blame it on that glandular problem, the more that problem isn't getting fixed, even though that problem is fixable. You see what I mean? Because you always have an out whenever it's brought up in conversation, or with your doctor, or whatever it may be.
Calorie of brownies is not the same as a calorie of kale. It's just not. That's just common sense. But yet we try to pretend that they're the same. So if it's not about calories, it's really about our hormonal response to those calories.
So he's saying it's about our hormonal response to the calories that we're eating. To a degree. If you eat certain kinds of foods, your hormones could change slightly, and you might burn off a little bit less calories. But it doesn't change the fact that it's calories in, calories out. If you're in a deficit, you lose weight. If you're in a surplus, you gain weight. Let's see more. So he's saying, hey, companies love the fact that they can classify things by...
Okay, so if you're in a deficit, you lose weight. If you're in a surplus, you gain weight. Okay, so we're going to have to break down what deficit means here a bit. Does a deficit mean less calories, a deficit of calories in? Or does it also have to mean a surplus in calories out? Because if it simply means the first one here, so a deficit simply means a decrease in the amount of calories you put in, then if you were to be in a surplus, let's say, with protein, you may lose more weight than if you were to be in a deficit with only eating fat. But if we incorporate the calories out, then it becomes a lot more complex, you see what I mean? Because now, in order to have a deficit, we must also have a surplus. So in order to have a deficit of calories in order to have a deficit in the way which we have to lose weight, we have to have a deficit of calories generally, and then we have to have a surplus in the amount of calories, the amount of energy we're outputting, right? And again, that's why I think the issue becomes more nuanced. Like, sure, if you eat, how can I say this? If you eat less calories than your basal metabolic rate plus your average activity requires, then you're probably gonna lose weight. However, eating certain calories in and of themselves can increase your basal metabolic rate plus your average daily activity. You see what I mean? I don't think Greg disagrees with this, but I feel like this point is brushed over in order to make the conversation more simple and more easy to have, which I think is a big problem.
Calories. Because, for example, sugary beverages like pop or something, you say, hey, if you go and do some cardio, you're going to burn off some calories, so it's okay to drink the sugar that has calories in it. So he's like, oh, that doesn't work out. It's not work like that. Well, yes, it freaking does. If you go and run 10 miles and burn off 1,000 calories and say, hey, I'm going to now eat 1,000 calories, it balances out.
There's a fundamental flaw in...
No, that's not true. That's not necessarily true. It won't balance out because well, Greg disagreed with this earlier in his point. If you eat 1,000 calories worth of protein, then the thermic effect of that protein will mean that the actual amount of energy you're getting from that, again, it becomes more complicated, because would you call the thermic effect of food calories out? Because that's not how most people think of calories out. Most people think of calories out as some sort of exercise which they voluntarily do, not in and of not contained in the food in and of itself, because effectively protein is at the same time calories in and calories out. You see what I mean? It's an input of calories and an expenditure of calories, so it wouldn't balance out. Overall, you would have expended more calories. I don't know how much more exactly, but assuming you would eat a high protein meal, or just protein, or just any macronutrient, because all macronutrients have a thermic effect of food. It's just that protein is the highest. It won't level out, because that food in and of itself will cause some calories to be used, if you get what I mean. Again, this is a complex topic, so I'm trying to break it down to some extent.
This whole energy balance equation. The energy balance equation says that body fat equals calories in minus calories out. So what we take from that is that we assume that if we simply reduce the amount of calories we take in, that we're going to reduce our body fat.
If you increase your caloric intake, you need to increase your caloric expenditure to balance out those calories. Does that not make sense? The more you eat, the more you need to move to burn off those calories.
Yeah, okay, so that's not true. And Greg disagreed with this earlier. So you don't actually have to move more. So let's say you would eat more, but you completely substitute out a food group, let's say fat for protein, as we were bringing up before. That means you don't have to move any more than before, and you can burn more calories because of the thermic effect of food. Greg disagreed with this point earlier, so he's just incorrect about this.
The less you move, if you sit on your ass and don't do anything, you need to eat less to counterbalance that. That is simple and easy to understand, but they're trying to overcomplicate it. That's what they're doing. Let's see more. See.
Okay, so from what I found in fitness, things are rarely overcomplicated. Things in fitness are extremely complex, right? Extremely complex. There are so many different intricacies when it comes to fitness and nutrition. In order to say that something's overcomplicated would, in like 9 times out of 10, just be incorrect. Oversimplification is a much bigger problem in fitness and nutrition than overcomplication, in my opinion.
You're not going to reduce your body fat by simply lowering your calories. Well, kinda not. If you lower your calorie intake, but lower your energy expenditure at the same time, it can balance out and you don't lose any weight. Well, yeah, that makes sense. If I go from running 10 miles a day, and I stop running, and I start eating less, I'm not gonna lose weight because I'm not moving as much. I'm not burning as many calories off. So you can't just eat less if you move less. If you eat less and move less, it balances out. So it doesn't just work like that.
Again, but it comes down to what you're eating. It's not just raw calories, right? It's the same thing. I could bring up the protein example again. I could bring up the inflammation factors, where it does. People don't, as I said before, people don't care about the weight. They care about how much fat they have on them normally. If they decrease weight, but that weight which they've lost is muscle, they probably won't be very happy. So when we look at inflammation, inflammation to a large extent can reassign where calories are effectively deposited, whether they go towards the building of muscle, or they contribute to fat tissue, is a big deal here, right? Because yeah, I just got that.
Let's see what else he says.
So there's actually two parts to it, the calories in and calories out. So the question really is, if you reduce your calories taken in, does your calories that your body expends stay stable? And the answer is no, and we've known this for about 100 years.
And is he right? He is right. But that doesn't mean he's literally right. It doesn't mean that calories in, calories out doesn't work. It means that if you eat less and you burn off less, then you're not going to lose weight. If you eat 500 calories less, but burn off 100 calories less, you still have a 400 calorie deficit.
So you can look at studies done in 1917 where they take volunteers and they reduce the number of calories that they eat by roughly 30%.
Is that the kind of study you should be using from 1917? When Grandma Josephine was not even alive yet?
Then they measure their basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories that they're burning.
I don't think the time of the study is necessarily the most relevant thing here. Studies can be extremely correct and they could be done 500 years ago. Like, I don't know.
On a day-to-day basis. And what you find is that the body has reduced its energy expenditure by about 30%.
Do you believe that? Of course not. It doesn't work like that, Jason Fung. No, and I know you're too smart to think this. You're not a freaking moron. Why are you spewing this information to confuse the average viewer? But a lot of people are going to watch this misinformation, and they're going to think, hey, I'm not going to try to lose weight, because if I lower my calories by 30%, my body's just going to compensate for that by saving energy, by conserving because of hormones.
Here is where I agree with Greg 100 million% right. This is what I was talking about before. It's a sleight of hand, exchanging the macro for the micro. People think the micro effects have a bigger effect than the macro effects, and therefore they do not pursue the path in life which would be best for them, right? They make these excuses, and I feel like calories in versus calories out, although being technically incorrect, provides something which is more important than simply being correct. It provides people, or let's say it stops people from having an excuse, right? Which I think is actually more important than being correct, because although you can go into all these details about hormones and stuff like that, if you get into analysis paralysis, or you simply think, throughout all my research I have found that there are so many factors going against me in losing weight, it would be better if I didn't try, going down that road, it wouldn't be true 9 times out of 10, that idea. But even if that idea was to be true, it would not be the most healthy option. It will be incorrect in terms of the most healthy option in order to increase your longevity or whatever it may be. And that's where calories in versus calories out really succeeds, being pragmatically true pretty much meaning the outcome is more positive. Not really. What would be a good example? You know, like when you're doing like maths or something like that, right? And then you would be asked to show you're working, right? Pragmatically, if you get the right answer, your working doesn't matter. Your working could be like 2 plus 2 equals 4,000, and the right answer is like 4,000 to the original question, right? Pragmatically, if you get the right answer, your working out doesn't matter whatsoever, right? Completely irrelevant. Looking at it non-pragmatically, you look more at the working out, right? And I think pragmatically, calories in versus calories out is optimal for people who are struggling in whatever health pursuit they may currently be doing.
Probably cortisol. It's not like that. If you reduce your calorie intake from 3,000 to 2,100 by 30%, sure, your body is going to burn a little bit less calories, maybe 10%. Your body might burn off maybe 100 or 200 calories less. Well, why, Coach Greg? Neat. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Your body moves less. It doesn't dance around making YouTube videos as much. When you're driving, instead of bopping your head, dancing around, burns less calories. You're less active. So yeah, your calories...
Here's another thing. Calories in versus calories out has implicitly suggests intentionality. It says that the more you move, the more calories you burn, which is true. But half of the time it isn't even you moving. It's involuntary actions which it's hard to say even you do, because you normally refers to like your voluntary side of you, whatever you want to call it, right? It's like you're not even moving. It's your body which is moving effectively, without your consent, without informing you that it's even moving sometimes. Like, even when people are in extreme deficits, and I've been like this, people in extreme deficits will blink less, right? Technically that would be them moving less, but are people in extreme deficits conscious of how much they blink? Normally not, unless they notice they're blinking less or somebody tells them. Although it may be very minute, this point, obviously, I think it's important to bring up the point that calories in versus calories out gives a false sense of intentionality, which shouldn't actually be there.
Intake's going to go down. And the opposite example, if you go and ride your bike for freaking 2 hours and ride 70 kilometers and say you burn off 1,500 calories, you're tired after that. So for the rest of the day, you're kind of tired. You're not burning off as many calories. Oh, but what if you do HIIT cardio? You do 15 minutes of HIIT cardio. You burn calories for the rest of your life. People try to think there's a secret. It's HIIT cardio. It's back and forth. It's this and that. It's steady state. It's no. It's all BS. You need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. You need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. You are not losing weight right now.
I don't think anybody disagrees with this. I don't think there's anybody out here who disagrees with you have to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. But that's a lot more complex when it comes to caloric expenditure. When we look at NEAT, when we look at the thermic effect of food, when we look at all these different things, caloric expenditure becomes a much more complex issue than simply how much you move. It becomes how it becomes effectively the thermic effect of your food combined with your NEAT, combined with, well, NEAT encompasses a lot of things, so I won't go into all the different facets of NEAT, combined with how much, let's say, conscious intentional activity you do, combined with your inflammatory responses to the food you're eating, combined with generally how healthy you are, combined with, to an extent, even your mood, right, cortisol, as you mentioned before, combined with, to an extent, your levels of dopamine, serotonin, because they can either directly or indirectly influence how much you're willing to move, combined with your levels of testosterone. And then we can go into beta-hydroxybutyrate, how much of that you may or may not have in your blood. This is a much more complex issue than just, oh, move more. It's like, oh, move more, and then 50 other things attached onto it, which could influence it, although to a lesser extent, to like a pretty big extent. It could be like 40-60 to some, in some cases, depending on how much you move. Right? It's calories in, calories out fundamentally can be seen as correct. But as I said before, implementation wise, it is false for many, many reasons, right?
It is because you are not in a calorie deficit. Doesn't matter about hormones, doesn't matter about what diet you follow, if it's freaking keto or carnivore, fasting, never fasting, super fasting. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what you think.
You need to be in a deficit. So what do you do if you're not losing weight right now? You either eat less calories or burn off more calories, or a combination of both. Okay, so 3 options.
Sure. I don't think anybody disagrees with this again. I think people just find the more nuanced version of burning off more calories. Burning off more calories could mean the litany of things which I just said. Finding foods with less inflammatory responses, finding food with a higher thermic effect, more protein normally, finding food which even to an extent makes you feel more motivated to move, right? Like some people may have some sort of food and it makes them like hyper motivated. This happens with like high sugary foods, right? High sugary foods often make people more motivated to move. They increase I don't even know if you call this NEAT, because it's hard to say whether you're doing it intentionally or unintentionally. But you see this with sugar rushes, with like children and stuff like that. The consumption of sugar makes them more active, involuntarily or voluntarily. It's hard to say, right? This is a more complex issue, but I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here at this point.
Has to be that. If you watch this video, you would be given the impression that if you go on a diet, your body is just going to conserve energy and you're not going to lose weight. You're going to think, out. It's genetics. I can't lose weight because my body's just burning off less calories.
It's very true, as I said before. The main advantage of this is it doesn't give people an excuse. People have too many excuses for the way they're living. Oh, this thing happened to me when I was a kid. Alright, well, you've grown up now, deal with it, in my opinion. But I don't know, I'm probably a bit more harsh about this stuff because I tend to care more about results than direct feelings at the time. Like if I'm doing a deadlift and my back hurts, my back probably won't hurt in a week, so I keep on deadlifting for the most part. If my back hurts in a week when I'm deadlifting, then I'll probably cut back. Because I think about long-term goals, not short-term goals, and definitely not about the past when I'm looking at my goals. Right.
It's not my fault, I told you. So I'm just gonna eat my cake, because why bother? Because if I eat this cake, my body's just gonna burn it off. If I don't eat it, it just won't burn off. So what's the point? I may as well eat my cake. Telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And what you want to hear is it's not your fault, and if you diet, it's not gonna help, and it's genetics. I'm telling you, no. Even if your genetics suck, if you eat less food, if you eat less calories, you're gonna lose weight. You will. Don't care if you burn less calories.
Again, that's not true. He said that earlier in the video.
Don't care if your freaking metabolism slows down. You're still going to lose weight. Your metabolism isn't going to slow down as much as the calorie deficit. If you lower your calorie intake by 10%, your body's not going to serve 10% of the calories. No, it doesn't work like that. If his theory was correct, that would mean if you don't eat anything, then you could survive on nothing. Your body would just conserve all energy. No, you would starve to death and die. You would be dead. So if you lower your calories low enough, you will...
Okay, alright, so that is not true. That would be taking it to its extreme. The study did not say that was going to happen. The study said in this particular scenario, this is what happened. It didn't say if taken to the extreme, this is what would happen, right? You shouldn't take studies like this to its logical conclusion, because the amount of variables, extraneous variables, which come into place when it comes to this study would change dramatically when it comes into what Greg is talking about here.
Lose weight. Guaranteed has to happen. Can't not. See what else he says.
So if you're taking 30% less calories in, and your body's using 30% less calories, then you're not going to lose any body fat, which was the whole point of the exercise. And this is really the failure of this sort of calories in, calories out model, is that they're not independent variables. The calories in and the calories out are not independent of each other.
Even if they are dependent
That is very true.
of each other. If you lower your calories, you're going to lose weight because your body is not going to compensate to that degree. Even though he quoted a study from 1917 before Grandma Josephine was ever born.
Again, this is not what Greg said. If you lower your calories and then you switch out your calories if you lower your calories and then your calories are fat, but before, if you switch out, okay, so let's say you lower your calories, but instead of having protein, which we had before, you have fat, you may not lose weight because of the thermic effect of the food. So it's not necessarily just a reduction of calories, right? It's more complex than this.
He had to look back to 1917 to back up his research. There's no way that he actually believes that if you reduce your calorie intake by 30%, that your body is going to conserve 30% less energy. I know for sure that he knows what NEAT stands for. I know he does. He's not an idiot. He's not a moron. But he's smarter than 99.9% of you. Enough to make it look like he knows what he's talking about. So if you watch the video, you probably don't know what to think. You probably watch his video, you watch my video, and you're like, nah, Coach Greg says calories in, calories out. This guy says, no, that's not how it works. He's a doctor. Coach Greg is just a circle. I'm going with this fun guy. Sorry, that's not how it works. I'm right, he's wrong.
Again, so Greg does something not in his favor here. If you have a doctor and somebody who says explicitly they're not a doctor, they're just a kinesiologist, who are you going to go with? The doctor, Occam's razor. If this guy's a doctor, he probably knows what he's talking about more than Greg, right? Why would you trust Greg? Because he has more social clout, he has more subscribers? No, that's not logical. You would go with the doctor. 10 times out of 10. It's not even a 9 times out of 10 sort of situation. Whether he's right or wrong, that doesn't matter here. The problem isn't right or the problem is right or wrong, but the main problem is the various different opinions and who to trust, right? As I said before, people don't know who to trust, and fair enough to them. I say just try everything and see what works for you. If something works for you, just do that. It's about results. As I said, it's about pragmatism. It's about where you get. People disagree with this, but anyway, it's about where you get to, not necessarily the journey you took to get there, in my opinion. Because if you lost 10 pounds of fat and you gained, I don't know, 20 pounds. Let's go with extreme. 20 pounds of muscle, lost 10 pounds of fat. If you got there, it doesn't matter how you got there, as long as you done it. Well, it does matter if you done something illegal for a competition or something, or whatever it may be. But if that's your goal, then you got there, right? If you have other goals, which like 9, to be honest, 10 out of 10 people do. If that happened, then it just died the next day. I'm pretty sure most people wouldn't aim for that, right? If your aim is longevity, then the issue then becomes even more complex, because how are you going to test that? You've got to look at different studies and samples, which is more important, which Greg doesn't really do in his videos, right? So if Greg continually says that the main point is longevity, he continually brings up longevity, he made a whole video on it. Longevity cannot be tested by trying out different meals, because you don't just die afterwards, then come back and then be like, oh, that one wasn't very good for longevity, let's try another. No, you're dead, right? So you have to look at other people's studies, other people's testimonies to an extent, which isn't what Greg does on his channel, which is even more to his detriment when we look at him compared to Fung.
Don't care about how he talks. Don't care about if he promotes fasting or not fasting or whatever. Don't care. I am right about this. And every single person that just watched this video, you agree for sure, because if you're not, guess what you're? A moron. Actually, no, that's a compliment. Sorry, that's a mistake by me. If you didn't believe that, you're an idiot, because your IQ is not as high as that of a moron. Eventually, if you watch enough of my videos, you'll go from being an idiot level up to a moron level, and eventually you're no longer a moron. There's a direct correlation between the number of videos.
Now, I'm no snowflake here, right? Obviously. But I understand the appeal of Greg's content, which is this like moron, idiot sort of undertone he has to these videos, which is funny, right? I can appreciate that. But when it comes to when it comes to issues like this, where you're just a kinesiologist you're not a doctor, going up against a doctor, and then you call the doctor, which is more qualified than you, an idiot or a moron, it kind of takes away a lot of the validity and credibility which you have, considering you're kind of trying to punch up, like with a pretty heavy punch and missing pretty hard. I don't know, but
Coach Greg, decrease body fat, increase muscle mass, proven by Baby Nikki and Gert, and they're around here somewhere. They're running around doing research. They're listening to me saying, I can't believe Dr. Fung took a research paper from 1917 to prove his information. Coach Greg would never do that. I am not going to quote information from 100 years ago to back up what I say. GregDoucette.com for coaching. Greg Doucette, IFBB Pro.
Alright. In conclusion, calories in versus calories out. If you're lazy, listen to that. If you're not, then there's more nuance than that. That's about all I have to say, and I'll see you a lot later.